I've been fascinated with art and music my entire life. In my adult life, I've been blessed to have met so many immensely talented visual and musical artists. Many from here in my own backyard. Kansas City has an abundant wealth of talented creators of original art. Join me, William Saunders, on a journey to illuminate the hidden architecture of creativity, how artists see, feel, imagine, and realize their inner worlds by engaging in open, exploratory dialogue. By bridging the rational and the intuitive, we aim to inspire fellow creators and curious audiences to appreciate the deeper forces behind visual and musical expression.
Inside the Creative Mind with your host, William Saunders.
Welcome to Inside the Creative Mind, and today we are going inside the creative mind of Katerina Jae. And she's a friend of mine also, but she is the front person and the creative force behind the band Ramona Clay. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the album, The Things We Don't Talk About, which I find intriguing, and the song Move, which I have a little bit of a personal connection to that we'll talk about as well. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Katerina Jae. As you said, I'm the front person for Ramona Clay. I'm trying to think of what you want to know. I'm very eclectic, so I like to do a lot of different things. I think a lot of people think that there's actual boxes that you can put yourself into, and I've never actually believed in that. In terms of music, I'm classically trained. So I played the B-flat clarinet from the time I was 10 all the way through college, and went on a music scholarship, but I studied psychology, which comes into play too, because sometimes people think you're an artist or you're a scientist, but I think you can be all of it. It's just what you invest your time in. And so music-wise, even though I was in band, I actually wasn't in choir or anything like that. But I've been writing music since elementary school. I remember in like the 5th grade, I would stay in during recess and compose music. And I actually have a cassette tape somewhere that I'm dating myself a little bit, but that has my first songs that I ever wrote. And my choir teacher helped me get that into a form so I'd have it. And so it's funny in terms of music, like I was always terrified of singing in front of people, but I also don't like being weak. So if there's something that I'm weak at, I like to try to make it a strength. And so I started going like karaoke in 2014 to get over my fear of singing. And people are like, you need to start a band. And I'm like, I'm not trained. They're like, you should start a band. And I used to kind of think that was like a selling point, that I wasn't trained. The further I get along in this, that was not a selling point. That was a starting point. And so I am actually trained in singing now, and I continue to work on that every day. So I think that's kind of that difference between a fixed versus a growth mindset. Whereas people with a fixed mindset say, hey, I'm good at this, I'm naturally talented, blah, blah, blah. And that's really reward based, but not like intrinsically motivated. And I think I've always been kind of the person, at least now, especially as I age, a growth mindset where I know I can always be better. And so I'm always pushing myself further and further. And I fail a lot, but a lot of people don't see those parts. They just see the shiny things. But I think that if you're not failing at stuff, then you're not setting your goals high enough.
Awesomely said. I will say that, if I had to, I guess, come up with a word to describe you, it would be the word do. And the reason I use that word do is because since I've met you, it seems like I can kind of put people into like categories. There's the dreamers that, I want to do this. I really want to do this. And then there's people who, put forth some effort to doing some things. And there's people who talk about doing stuff. And there's the people who plan to do stuff. And then there's you. And you simply just do stuff. And, you make up your mind, this is what I'm going to open for this band. And lo and behold, you're opening up for that band. And I think that's such a great tool to have as an asset. If you have a message and you want to get that message out to the world in the form of an art form, you really have to, if you sit there waiting for people to find you, or if you're waiting for people to magically, make it happen for you, it doesn't work that way. You have to be out performing. You have to build that fan base, and you have to get the message across by whatever mean works. And it takes a lot of effort. And I think a lot of people don't realize the effort it takes to actually get your art form seen and heard by the populace. This episode brought to you by Central Standard Theater, Kansas City. Central Standard Theater Kansas City brings UK talent to Kansas City and Kansas City talent to the UK. Proudly presents Sarah McQuaid. Promoting her 6th album, Sarah raps her poetic songs in acoustic and electric guitars, piano, and a floor tom drum. Don't miss Sarah McQuaid at the Warwick Theater on November 5th. Check www.cstkc.com for tickets. The album we're going to talk about is The Things We Don't Talk About. And specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about the song Move. But before I get into that, I really want to dive, you hit on a couple points I really want to go back to. Let's talk a little bit about childhood, and then what music was in your home as you're growing up.
We listened like exclusively to Oldies 95. So I was listening to Motown. I wish they still kind of had that out there, but I was listening to 40s, 50s, and 60s. As an adult, I really love 60s and 70s, even though they're a little before my time. But it was like old classics. So like, my mom really loved the Temptations and really loved Patsy Cline. And my dad and I still sing Elton John songs together to this day,
Nice.
Franklin. And there's so many different influences in terms of the kind of music I listen to. Pink Floyd. I'm trying to think. The Eagles. I know a lot of people don't like the Eagles, but I love them. I'm not ashamed. But these old songs, and then as I got a little bit older, then it's Nirvana, Metallica. Some of these other bands I really appreciate. Like Deftones are one of my favorite bands, and I got to see them live. They were so incredible. It was probably the best concert of my life.
Sure, yeah. I know your guitar player is not a fan of Don Henley.
He's not.
He's told me that several times.
I'm closeted. I'm a closeted Eagles fan. I blame my dad.
I think got some great songs. I will catch myself in my YouTube music feed. Every once in a while, I just how I'll randomly put songs in there with your playlist and stuff. And I noticed the other day that an Eagles song, "In the City," was in my playlist. And I was like, oh my God, the harmonies on this are brutal. And so it's a great song. And so I can't really hate on them at all. So what was the first, if you recall, what was the first music you purchased that was uniquely your purchase?
Maybe a gift that I asked for.
Okay,
I'm going to date myself. Sure. My first one, my first CD was Ace of Base.
I saw the sign.
Yep, 100%. I think the first one I purchased was probably TLC, Crazy Sexy Cool, which I really love that album.
Nice.
All little girls choose to be one of the members of TLC, at least if you're from my generation. And sure. I always wanted to be Chili. I wanted to be the backup singer. Most of my other friends wanted to be Left Eye. And who would have known that I would have gone on this journey and not ended up a backup singer,
Just burning down houses. NFL players.
That's a touchy subject, right? We joke because at our album release show, we played it in May, and we had a whole bunch of great bands play. One of those bands was the band Barrage, and one of their members got stuck in the elevator, and it kind of started an electrical fire. And
oh my
so
gosh.
the firefighters had to come. They were like, we were all like backstage, and they were like this close to evacuating Voodoo Lounge. And I joke with them because I'm some really good friends with them. I was like, all right, Garrett, he's their drummer. I'm like, Garrett, when we said burn the house down, we did not mean
it. Sure. What was your first concert?
So I don't remember which band it was, but I'm from Kansas City, and at Crown Center, they had a whole bunch of free concerts. And so my mom was a single mom, and she took me to the free concerts at Crown Center. I'm probably going to lie to you, but I think it was Mamas and Papas may have been the first that I saw.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was so young that I'm not quite sure which one was that, but I'm pretty sure it was them.
Awesome. So right now, let's take a look at the clip from the video. That way, everybody can get familiar with the song we're talking
Absolutely.
about. Move.
And if you want to try, how do I move to get closer to you? How do I move? 'Cause how do I move to get closer to you? How do I move? 'Cause if this is a game I don't wanna play, 'cause if this is a game I'm gonna win, 'cause if this is a game I don't wanna play, 'cause if this is a game I'm gonna win.
Okay, we're back, and that video is, obviously holds a special place in my heart because it was filmed at the Warwick Theater where I used to work. So
It
that's
absolutely was.
and I was happy to be a part of that. When I met you, I was just like, wow, I'm really intrigued by this person. She really is like I said, a go-getter, and she, knows what she wants and
Mhm.
isn't afraid to ask for it. And so I was delighted that the Warwick served as the set for that video. And it's kind of hard to tell, by when you're watching it. But talk a little bit about the album, and then the theme of the things we don't talk about. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So the irony, right? Things we don't talk
Yeah.
about, Bruno, Fight Club, my music. No, but yeah, with it, there was a whole bunch of different circumstances that led me to write an entire concept album on mental illness, treatment, and other stigmatized experiences. So the album actually covers anywhere from stalking, sexual assault, suicidal thoughts, suicide loss, where you lose a loved one to suicide, PTSD, domestic abuse, and a whole variety of topics that people can relate to. And either there's things that I experienced personally and used music as my coping strategy, or I have loved ones that go through things as well. And so I just didn't actually even plan on it being a concept album. It wasn't until it was done that I realized what it was. And so once I had
Yeah.
all that music written, I went and found bandmates. So one of my founding members, Tim Jenkins, is still with me. We have Nick Sossman, who is also one of our original members, and we have Kevin Stiles, who's been with us for quite a while now. And so when I did that, I knew that this was more than about music. I create music because I want to, not because
Right.
I have no delusions of becoming famous, no delusions of actually ever making money from it. If I break even, that's like my lifetime goal with music.
Yeah.
But I knew it could be a vehicle to get people some help. And so it expanded into so much of a bigger project than I realized it would be, where we got sponsors, and we're working with sponsors still to get resources out to people, get quality evidence-based information out to people so they know how to get treatment, how to navigate some of the barriers to treatment, like transportation or long waiting lists, or what if you don't have the right fit for a counselor, because that's really important in being able to heal from whatever you're going to heal from. And so I wanted to create this so people knew that they weren't alone, that it's okay to be vulnerable and discuss these
Sure. Yeah.
things, and it's okay to get treatment because, American culture traditionally, I think it's kind of changed a lot in this thought, was that if you get help, you're weak. When
Mhm.
actually, I think that's a sign of strength because it's a lot
Absolutely.
harder
Yes.
to go and get help. I've been struggling with mental illness, almost my entire life, probably since I was like 12 years old. And so pair that up with having ADHD, I bet you're surprised. It makes it hard to navigate, and
Sure.
but if we just lay down and take it, it robs us of so much joy that we could have. And actually, that's what Move is about. So most people think it's this wild chaos. I mean, you saw a clip of the video already. But really, what that is, I think in metaphor, And that video is a metaphor for mental illness battle. And so if you paid attention to the lyrics, not just watching the flashy video, you actually listen to the words. I may shine light, but there's darkness inside. Like some of the brightest people actually suffer from depression, and
Yeah.
their way to try to fight that is to be a light to other people. And so deep within those lyrics, it's based in chess terms. And actually, that specific song I wrote after binge watching The Queen's Gambit, which was a Netflix limited series that was about chess. And so I was like, man, like
Yeah.
some of the battles that we face are kind of like that, right? In the music video and in the lyrics, I say that I'm the king. And it's not because that's the most powerful piece. That is not the most powerful piece in chess. It's the queen. And so,
Absolutely.
and when I'm talking about that, like one of the lyrics is about how like the queen can get anywhere, and that's kind of our devices for fighting this mental illness, whether it's medications, because if we actually look at what causes mental illness, a lot of it is genetic. Like for example, schizophrenia is caused by oversupply of dopamine and more dopamine receptors, and so the way that they treat it is they take medications that are dopamine blockers. It goes into neuron to block so that the following neuron doesn't absorb the dopamine, which is what causes the hallucinations and things. And there's so many more links to depression and serotonin levels, dopamine levels, and we're not fully aware of everything that happens. And because neurons are so tiny, I think people rather blame the individual or other circumstances, or, you know, like in the past, they would say you were possessed if you had mental illness. But I think it's just because as humans, we like to see things. We like physical things that we can manipulate and stuff like that. And it's really hard to do that when neurons are so tiny.
I'm curious your opinion on the role social media plays in the mental strain on the populace.
And so you're going to hear the nerdy side of me right now. So in terms of
Good.
doing studies, yeah, I'm a nerd. I can't help it. I've embraced all my nerdiness and weirdness because I think I rather live that kind of life than hide who I actually am. But
Absolutely.
with that, I can make projections, but anytime we want to find if there's a causal link, basically we have to take a sample of people, randomly assign them to be in one condition, randomly assign them to be in another, and give these people social media time, keep these people from it, and then measure some sort of dependent variable like depression or anxiety levels and see if this group has significantly more of those than this. So what I'm going to say are just thoughts. It's not fact because it's not necessarily my research area. But in terms of social
Sure.
media, I know that when I took a break this year from social media for a couple months, that it was the most productive time I've had in so long. I was a lot happier. I got to be more intentional about who I communicated with. You were one of those people that I communicated with, you know, Kimberly Poole, who has her own music magazine, checked on me almost every single day. And we still, to this day, we write each other multiple times a day. Friends were like, hey, let's go get coffee or let's go get food. And I was a lot happier because as you progress in different things, you find out that people want more and more from you. And as someone who likes to give, I will give so much until it hurts me or I'm not doing my own thing. And so, speaking personally, not for the entire populace, I think I'm a lot happier when I'm off of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've taken a few breaks myself and experienced something very similar. I felt one, that I was able to reconnect with nature a lot more so, which tend to affect my outlook, meaning that I was a little bit more optimistic in the creative projects I was doing, and not so brooding, I should say, because a lot of stuff I would, not to dive deep into this, but I have to write in little boxes. Like there's like the composer who does instrumentals that or an orchestra type arrangements and stuff like that. There's the singer songwriter, and then there's the guy who writes more rock music. And each one of those has its own thing. But I found myself gravitating to more of the darker themes the more time I spent on social media. And I found myself wanting to get more back to acoustic stuff the further I was away from that, and more earthy, more grounded type approach to my own creative process. So I totally get it. I was just curious about that because, I know, what your, profession is, and was curious if you had any thoughts on that. So I appreciate that. So
Yeah,
let's dive into this. So can you tell me, or can you describe the moment when the idea for Move first took shape? How did it arrive, and how did you nurture it into being this full work, into this incredible video and stuff?
it was actually a really long process. Man, there's so many things I could talk about, but in terms of when I first wrote the song, I'm trained on Pro Tools and Logic Pro. I haven't
Mhm.
delved into Ableton, but these are all called digital audio workstations. I don't know how familiar with your audience is with that, but basically it's a thing that you use to record your music. And so when I did it, I actually started out playing on bass. I'm a multi instrumentalist, even though I don't always do everything on stage, but I wrote it out with a bass track to start with. And I was like, man, I hear this really moody and brooding. And I already love chess. So, like, with my family, we'll play chess. And then I watch The Queen's Gambit. And I'm like, something's coming. Like, I can see this in metaphor. Like,
Right.
there's a battle and it's going to happen. So I actually, when I wrote this song, I also storyboarded the entire music video in that moment. And it was years before we made the music video at the Warwick Theater. Because when I first started asking different people, I have some friends that work at Black Banner Productions and some other production companies that do these types of things. And everyone was telling me how much money it would cost. I think one person gave me an estimate: the video you're wanting to shoot would cost $10,000. And I don't
Right.
have $10,000. Like, there's too many people that
Right.
depend on
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
to survive. And my job is busy and things like that. I don't have that kind of money laying around. And if I did, I would have a new piano by now because those are costly as well. But I couldn't let it go. And actually, the
Upcycle.
things, yeah, I will have to do that for sure. I've been
Yeah.
looking. I'm trying to decide because we're working on our next project right now behind the scenes, and I've got to decide if piano's the instrument I'm wanting to play in that or something else.
Sure.
But that's top secret for now. But with
Sure.
that, like, the things we don't talk about was actually a visual album. So I don't know if you got to see Beyonce's Lemonade. So it's basically a music video that spans an entire album. There's actually an
Hmm.
entire story that spans that entire album. We just only were able to do a video for one of them. And
Right.
you know how much we had to wheel and deal to get this thing done. I'm so thankful
Oh
that
yeah.
you actually were one of the biggest champions for getting this music video done because I showed you. I'm like, look, I will give you guys
Yeah.
anything. Like, I will promote you all. Like, I will play a show here. I mean, because we've played in the past at the Warwick Theater, and I was like,
Yeah. I was there.
I have this vision. You were, and for you all to let me paint because we did this ourselves. We bought the paint buckets. We used some of your staff. We paid some of them to help us, but we painted that life size chess board on
Mhm.
the floor of the Warwick, and then 2 days later we had to paint right back over it. That was such a
Right.
surreal experience because I think that's also when we played the Pause Club at Starlight Theater before. I think it was Goo Goo Dolls, maybe then Goo Goo Dolls
Yeah.
and OAR, and so like we're not making any money, but we're getting these really cool experiences where something that I just thought up when I was in the corner of my bedroom and I had these visuals that I wanted to do. And I wanted to play a live game of chess with my 31 favorite, I guess, chess pieces now. And we did that because there was probably about 50 people involved. Besides, we had the Warwick Theater, Sid Souter, who is a music blogger here, Too Much Rock here in Kansas City, actually um, came in just to kind of peek what we're doing and ended up helping us. He ended up running the music track for us because if you're not familiar with music videos, it's not the real sound from the area, but I did sing along
Right.
with it
Yeah.
because I wanted it to sync very well. And he would just keep redoing it because we spent, I think, 8 hours just to shoot a 3.5 minute
Sure.
video. I mean, we've
Yeah.
had people from like these different like Renaissance Festival troops who do stage combat train us in stage combat. We had to figure out safety and all the costuming, and we had different teams. We had Team Red versus Team Black. So technically, and people don't know this, but Team Red, typically in chess, you have white and black. Team Red is actually Team White. Their garments are just stained with blood.
Oh, yeah.
From the battle.
I was curious
right?
about that, you know, because when I was watching, I was like, oh, I wonder why they're not White Queen and all this. But yeah, okay, makes perfect sense. So was there any yeah, in I think probably my favorite character is probably Julia's in that just in the video.
My gosh.
She's so good in it. She's so good.
Julia Reynolds,
Everybody
Julia
actually had in that
Wildstar
video.
is incredible. She's actually my music little sister.
Yeah,
And
she's
her and I have been
fantastic.
doing shows for a really long time. Actually, that's how I met or re-met, because I guess I had met Tim a long time ago from my previous band, Interstate Run, but Tim was a part of a different band at the time, and Julie was also part of that band. And so we met because of the Warwick Theater show that my band had done. And that was actually my first show back to music after having my tonsils removed, which I didn't know if I would ever be able to sing again. Yeah, for sure. So that was a very exciting and memorable gig. And I'm so thankful for you again for doing that, because who knows if I'd be doing music now if it wasn't for that opportunity that you gave us.
Oh, that's that warms my heart. That's wonderful.
It's true.
So let's talk about was there anything that was in the process of from the first time you had the idea starting to formulate and, you know, working through the process of getting the song recorded? Was there any, I don't know, any obstacles, external or internal? Was there any like doubts or roadblocks or, you know, writing blocks to finish the lyrics, or anything that you had to deal with in that process?
Not with that song. Some songs I do kind of have that, and if I do have a roadblock, I won't force anything. I'll just set it aside
Sure. Yeah.
for a little bit. I think the biggest challenge is that I had written that song so long ago, and even from the time we started recording, because one of our sponsors is Catamount Recording Studio up in Cedar Falls, Iowa. They actually recorded Stone Sour's Gold album there at that studio. And so they actually ended up being a sponsor on this project with us. And so we were traveling, you know, from Kansas City up to Cedar Falls. And by the time we end up releasing the album this year, you know, we'd been working on it for 2 or 3 years recording. And so one of the problems that we ran into is, because I'm continuing to try to get better and better, because I don't think I'll ever be to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm good, I'm awesome. No, like, what can you do next? And there was so much dramatic growth in my vocal abilities from when we first recorded. I want to say it was January of 2023 when we did some of these different takes for songs. And because we did that with Catamount Recording, we also did some recording with Element Recording Studio. I'm not sure here in town. I'm not sure which one recorded Move with specifically, but with the entire album, the vocals were 2 or 3 years old. And so we knew we were going to release it this year. So on my birthday in March this year, it was the day before, and we re-recorded every single vocal I did on that. And we recorded some of the different things. So if there was things like that we noticed that we messed up, nothing with what our studios did or anything, but things that we thought we kind of messed up and didn't catch, or that we thought could be better, we just went in the studio, did it, and I spent my birthday, we went into my birthday, and I was doing what I loved till like 2 a.m. in the morning.
By the way, I'm absolutely religious about that. I mean, when I was in the Army, I had to work on my birthday, but that's the only exception. I just simply refuse to work my birthday, because it's really your only day. Christmas is not yours, you know. New Year's, well, I know one person who's born on January 1st. So New Year's Day kind of is hers too. but normally these holidays are not, you know, they're globally, you know, celebrated. So your birthday is really the only thing that's really you that you can kind of celebrate. So I am absolutely religious about the fact that I'm going to do something that I want to do that brings me joy on my birthday. And it 9 out of 10 times is going to involve the art, music, Rebecca, or the dogs. Not necessarily in that order, but you know, it's going to involve one of those 4 things. So awesome. So tell me a little bit about how how did you know when Move was done? When you can put a bow on it and say it's
Mhm.
completed. Because specifically, what is the criteria or the feeling that tells you it's ready to share? Because I find that a lot of artists will just continue to tweak and adjust and can't really put a bow on it. So I'm curious about you and your process for how do you know when it's done.
So this is actually probably one of my limitations or weaknesses is actually putting stuff out. And sometimes just experiences happen where I'm like, okay, it's going out now. It has to. Like you've been holding on to it for way too long. And I'm trying to get better about that because I don't want to be in a position where I record a song and then don't let it out loose in the world until 3 years later, and then I'm already at a different level by
Right.
the time that happens, and we saw that with Move and this whole album. So, for example, the music video version of the song is not the version that's on the album, actual album. So we had 2
Mm,
versions, and, like I said, we spent, my birthday re-recording all the vocals. I actually changed the melody, when I re-recorded it because I had, traditionally, I sing kind of in a lower register. I sing a tenor part even though I'm a woman, and I think part of that is because when I was younger, it was always presented to me that gentleness, or femininity is weakness, and so I stayed
mm,
away from, being up in my upper register and things like that. But the older I get, I realize that gentleness is actually strength. It's a lot harder to be gentle with people than to
absolutely.
just react, respond. And part of that is like learning to love your enemies. Like if someone does something terrible to me, it doesn't mean I'm going to get back at them. I hope that they get better. I hope that whatever it is that made them do horrible things to me goes away so that they can live a happy life. And that's a lot harder to do than being like, "Ooh, I'm going to get you back for what you did." And the same thing was with my voice. Like I didn't allow myself to explore the softer parts of my person, and so I've started doing that through really meticulous study. And so, like, that's where my growth areas are right now. The mixed portion of my voice, where kind of my chest voice and my lighter mechanism, my head voice, kind of mix so
Mhm.
that I can go up and down the register. And so that's actually really helping now. But like with Move, I decided, oh man, like it's kind of monotone. I don't like how, so let's go up an octave or let's go up a fifth for half of the chorus. And we re-recorded it and we have both versions available. And I may still continue to tweak it with live shows, but to be honest, by the time we had our album release, we're already on to the next thing. We already have 20 songs
Right.
for our next album, and we're actually kind of sick of playing the same songs over and over again. And some of the
Yeah.
songs from the new album that we piloted, people are like, wow, that's you guys are moving in a very good direction. And um, while we're thankful for it, that's not why we do it. We go through stages, I think, as humans, and music for me is kind of like a diary and a storytelling medium at the same time. So
Mhm.
the way I'm now, how I'm writing music now will not be hopefully how I'm writing it in a year from now, 2 years, 5 years from now. And so I don't know that music's ever fully finished, but sometimes I'm just like, we've got to move on so we could get on to bigger and better things.
Sure. And I think I know the answer to this one, but I want to ask it anyway. But what role does intuition, improvisation, or just accidents, where you just accidentally write a song, does that play in your work, or do you have a more regimented, um, tightly plan for trying to be creative? Because for me, I can tell you that if I sit down and say, and the worst thing that can happen is, I say, okay, oh God, I got some free time, tonight. I really want to write something. That very rarely ever works for me. It just when it's there, it's there, and you hope that you're in a situation where you can get a pen or get a keyboard or something to try to get the idea um, hatched out. So with you, how's that kind of work?
Yeah, it's haphazard. There is no method. I do not typically be like, I'm going to write a song about eggs and then write a song about eggs, but I will start feeling something inside, or I'll have some sort of experience that triggers a really complex thought that may not be palatable to other people, because I write in soliloquy. I can talk, right? I write in metaphor and soliloquy, which means that I have these experiences that may not be palatable. So I write them in a different way because every song that I write has layers to it.
Right.
And that helps make those experiences more palatable. So like if something happens to me, I'm typically not writing music right when it happens. It could be 10 years from now. It could be 6 months from now. It could be a year
Sure.
from now. And I don't set out to write about those things. I just have a thought or an emotion that I need to digest. And then I just let the song be born.
Sure. Do you find that there's a spiritual connection? Does there, like, I think a lot of artists would say that they feel like they're tapping when it's really flowing, when creativity is just like almost you can't keep up with it, that it feels like you're tapping into like a divine current kind of thing. Is there any of that, or is it just more mundane?
No, I believe that too. I think music is the most spiritual that anyone can be. If you're doing it for the right reasons. Now, there's some people who aren't doing it for the
Sure.
right reasons, right? There's people who write Christmas music because that pays a lot of money. Like there's some
Right.
people who
Yeah.
are country artists because that's a thing, not because that's where their soul's at. And so for some people, they might not be tapping into that, but for me, it's always been divine.
Agreed. Agreed wholeheartedly. Okay. After work is completed and out in the world, how does your relationship with the song change? In other words, like, do you see it differently or revisit it, or do you just let it go entirely? And I think I know the answer because you just kind of told us that with Move, you kind of it's organic and it's not the same as it was when you first put it out there. So it keeps evolving. Is that typically the relationship you have with your songs overall, or do they you kind of just let them be whatever they're going to be?
It just really depends on what I'm feeling in the moment. So some songs we've probably done the same way every time, just because that's feels good and that's what we do. But I think things also change. I'm never going to be happy with anything that I've done or fully happy.
Right.
So I think that's really tricky. Sometimes songs I write them not because of any type of like reason, but I just felt like, okay, you're gonna write the song. And the weird thing is that sometimes after I write those songs, they kind of mimic other things that happen in my life. I'm like, how did this happen? Like, like,
Right. Yeah.
like for music fortune telling. No, but it's just weird
Yeah.
that like
For real.
when my song has something to say, it says it, and whether or not I recognize what it means in the moment might be something different.
Awesome. So, do you feel like the music that you you put out in the world, does it from I think for a lot of people it's like a snapshot of this is how I'm feeling at this particular point in time, and it's hard, especially with live performance, because audiences absolutely pick up on if something is more contrived, or if the artist is connecting to the thing that they're putting out there. Do you find it easy or hard to get back into the connection that led to the creation of that song, or is it difficult to do that?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of times if I allow myself to feel, because sometimes you can let yourself feel too much. For
Yes.
example, the song Can't Bring You Back is about one of my friends who died by suicide and like having a whole bunch of different feelings. So I have, like, especially in the beginning when I started playing that song out, had complete breakdowns when doing
Mhm.
it because I thought about it too much. And so sometimes I have to kind of put a little bit of distance between me and a song. Sometimes songs lose their complete meaning because they're part of my journey. And I needed to do it to heal. And then after I'm healed from it, maybe I don't necessarily want to play it anymore. Sometimes we will,
Right.
but like there's songs I'm like, I'm ready to retire this one. And if people want it, maybe I'll play it again later. But I think something that's really interesting about music is it can be a time machine in some ways, where even
Mhm.
if it's like not your own song, but if you hear a song, you remember, okay, like for example, Drops of Jupiter, when that song came out, I have this very vivid memory of sitting in the car with my feet on my mom's dashboard of her car while she's inside the laundromat doing laundry. And I remember that moment. And so that kind of transports me back. And I think my own music can do that as well. It doesn't necessarily do it every single time, but I'm not someone to put up fake emotion. If I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it. And if I'm not, then I'm just going to have fun with it, and I'll just play. And
Sure.
because music's my happy place, it's also um, my social connection. So a lot of people mistake me for an extrovert, but I'm actually very introverted. I just present like that because there's skills that I've learned. Like I learned, oh, people like smiles. And then once I started smiling, I'm like, oh, this is fun. And then I love to smile because
Right.
it makes me happy, makes other people happy. Um, I used to be really shy. I have a really good friend who's been my friend almost my whole life. Her name's Holly. And when I moved to Kansas City, she's like, you're too shy. And she taught me how not to be shy. It doesn't mean I don't have those tendencies still, but I think I'm a lot less busy than what people think. I go to bed about 8:30 every night, or I crawl into bed to try to start going to bed. But with music, that's what I do for my social life. Like band practice to
Yeah.
me is my big social outing every week, unless I'm going on a date or
Sure.
something like that. Um, and so I feel like I've gotten way off track,
No. I get it.
but I love
So
it so much. Yeah. And it's authentic,
it
real and raw,
shows.
or I wouldn't be doing it. Mhm.
Before I ask you this last question, I want to at least mention the fact that I remember when you guys were on stage, I was like, "Oh my God, the energy this woman has," and she's absolutely being rock-star-ish right now. It's like I thought it was admirable how you just have no fear when it comes to performing and stuff like that, which I think performance is its own thing. It's like you, no matter how good a songwriter you are, if you're just doing it in your basement or your living room or your bedroom, or with just friends, that's fine and dandy. But really performing in front of an audience is where you really cut your teeth, and you find out what works and you find out what doesn't work. And I just want to just let people know that if they catch one of your shows, they're going to leave going, wow, was a great performance, and you guys really put it out there. And obviously Tim and I go back a long ways to
Great.
some of the first shows I was doing in town. So yeah, it's just really good stuff. And so the last question I got for you is this. You mentioned that you have on cassette some of your very first songs. When I look back at a lot of the early recordings I did, and at the time I had uh people close to me saying, "Uh, maybe you should not have sing." maybe maybe you should do
Oh,
something
ouch.
different. And so I never took that as like, oh wow, no, I just took it as like I got a 10,000 hours I'm going to have to put in on this. And
Yes, you've read that
in
book.
order to be where I want to be. And so I just, was relentless in how much woodshedding I did to, get my vocal skill up, to match the other things. But when I listen to those early recordings, it's weird because I'm really turned on by the songwriting. Now the production, obviously my production skills are, 1,000-fold better than what they were, in the 90s. Um, but the songwriting has always been there. When you listen to your early stuff like that, what's your takeaway? And how does what creative process do you bring forward from that time till now?
Oh man, that's really difficult. I think when I hear some of my older things, I think, man, I've come a long way. Really, like with that effort, and so even if it's not like the best, or different, it's still beautiful in its own aspects. So of course, 10-year-old me is going to write very different songs than current
Sure.
version of me, and future version of me will write different songs of that
Right.
too.
Yeah.
And it was really strange because when you start performing and putting yourself out there on some of these bigger stages like we've been doing, that people are like, man, every time we see you, you get better. and better and better. And at first that's kind of offensive. Not really. Like if you think about it, it's not, but you're like, I must have sucked before. But then really like if you think about it, like,
Yeah.
you know what? Like I worked so hard to be able to go up into my head voice or to be able to do runs or to do harmonies because that's something that I'm working on now. One of my growth edges is learning to do harmonies. And when we recorded some of the songs for the first time, I did some harmonies and it was really interesting because I would record a track. We re-recorded all the vocals at Weight and Measures with Dwayne Trowell. And when we
Yeah.
did that, we would do a take and I'd be like, okay, mute the vocal, keep it, let me sing it different. And then when we lined it up, it was a beautiful harmony. I could hear it in my
Nice.
head, but I've never been one to be able to harmonize because, you know, I wasn't in choir where they teach you that freely. I mean, I've been in like every once in a while, I'll be in a church choir or praise team or something like that for a church. But I always end up singing the dominant part just because that's where my ear takes me when I hear things. And
Right.
so what I hear is that I worked really hard at this. Like I put in a lot of time to be better, and I'm so proud of that.
Absolutely. So can you tell people where can they find more information about you? And is there any projects you want to mention that you got going on right now? Any shows or anything else that are coming up in the month of November?
So right now we are in a writing cycle. And so we trade with my job. It's very flexible in the summers. So we usually do summers for touring and for shows and things like that. But in terms of the winter, we kind of hibernate because we're working on a very, very large project right now. Uh,
Nice.
we're I'm trying not to say too much.
Sure.
I've
Yeah.
already
But
kind of spoke. I kind of started speaking about it because the problem is that we were working and we've been working on a rock opera for a little over a year now. Before we even release this other, yes, no, I'm super excited. I'm not going to tell you all the details yet. But the problem is, and then I went through a life experience that then made me think, oh no, do we continue doing the rock opera or do we do this other thing? Because I have two different ideas at once. Which one are we going to do first? Because anytime you invest time in one thing, it takes time from something else. And so learning to
absolutely. Yeah.
prioritize, especially with my ADHD, has been really problematic for me. So I'll start 100 things at once and then have a hard time finishing things. But then I eventually do 10 years later, like they happen, right? So this rock opera, like we're hoping, because we're working with the entire team, it's not just musicians at this
Right.
point. So we have aerial artists, fire dancers. I don't know what their technical terms are. We're trying to find a magician. Like there's a lot of
Pyro
things. Pyrotechnics,
performers.
yes, it is. You know what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
so we're trying to put
Absolutely.
it together. We're hoping to have some sort of demo, at least a portion of it, by Renaissance Festival in 2026 so that we can demo out a few things from it. But we're looking to hopefully do a tour in summer of 27 with it as a full show. But then, like I said, something else had happened, and that I am now, do I go ahead and create this other album or do I finish the rock opera? Is the other music that's coming up right now, is it something we could use in the rock opera or is it its own masterpiece? And I don't have all those details yet. I just know right now we've written within the last 3 weeks, I think 5 songs. So right now it's
Nice.
just creation, generation. We can worry about the other things later because when songs want to come, they come. And much like you,
Sure.
like I used to, like if I didn't have paper, I would write lyrics on my arms and on my hands. I looked like
Yes.
I joke that
Yeah.
I'm like a songwriting addict where like, you know, the words are track marks of my arms. But you know, I have so many voice recordings of partial songs that sometimes I use or I don't. We were working on a song in practice last week where I was like, I don't feel this verse yet. And Tim's like, just do it. Tim is my cheerleader for sure because he'll be like, I'll be like, oh, I don't think you can do it. And he'll be like, you can do it. So like when we first started, I didn't know I was going to play piano as much as I do in our shows. He's like, you can do it. And I did it. And then I went on this random experience where I did Outward Bound adventure where I went without electricity and running water for 7 days in the Everglades. And we went like 32 miles in a canoe, and I had never canoed before. That
Wow.
was an adventure. But during that, one of our guides had little cigar box guitars that just had 4 strings on them. And I ended up getting one, and Tim's like, you should play this at our show. And I'm like, you know what? I should. And then he's like, you should play a real guitar. I'm like, I should. And then I did it and I started playing. People go wild when I do. I am not the greatest guitarist, but I am a show woman or show person. I don't know, a showman.
Yes, you are.
And so like every time, like Tim's like, try this. And then I do, and I'm successful. So a lot of times when I'm doing these things, I don't ever think I'm going to be successful. I just do it despite thinking I'm going to fail at it. But something I've recognized is that Tim, my guitar player, tells me you should do it. And I just listen to him and do it by this point. And so like last week when we were writing the song, he's like, you should do some vocalizations over the verse. I'm like, I don't think I can. And then I did it immediately. And I'm like, why do I ever question him? Like, he is such a kind human and such a really diplomatic person and very good at encouraging other people, which I think also comes from his career in management and things like that. And so I just keep going, you know?
Katie, I can't thank you enough for being on this episode with me. As you know, I'm a fan and a friend, and I appreciate you so much. And I encourage everybody who sees this to go check out Ramona Clay. You're going to not be disappointed. And if you get a chance to buy some music.
Yes, we would appreciate that, with our hopes of breaking even one day. Like, yes, we'd appreciate that very much. And thank you for asking me to be on here. I'm not going to lie. I purposely scheduled this as quick as possible so I could be your first guest because you
Nice.
have supported me in everything, You and whether it's with the Warwick Theater or with this. And I was like, you know what? He's going after something. I'm coming along. So I don't know what journey we're going to go on, but we're going. And I really appreciate that because you're so talented too. And I don't know how much your listeners know about you quite yet, but like music's not the only thing you're talented at. Like, you do so many different things. And I always enjoy you're like, hey, look at this animation. I'm like, you do that too? Like, you're incredible. And I think friendships, the best kind of friendships we have are where we find some sort of similar goal. We dream together and we support each other and we get there. And that's something like the relationship that we've always had. Also, like with moving forward, that's a relationship I have with her name's Sarah, and she owns Cloud9 Aerial Arts. We're actively working on this show that we eventually want to tour. And she actually got to come, and she and a couple of her aerial artists performed at our album release. And so the friendship I have with you and people like Sarah and other people like Kimberly Poole, it's very awesome to see friendships that build people up rather than build relationships that's about tearing people down or criticizing or gossiping, because there's no place for that in my life.
Amen. You are simply the best. Katerina Jae, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you.